Hey guys, welcome to Solid State Gamer Quick Looks, a small video series I recently started where basically I play a small chunk of a game and essentially talk about its mechanical nuances as well as its entertainment value and its audio fidelity as well as its graphical fidelity. I'm your host, John Rivera, lead reviewer for the site as well as the host of the Romcast, and welcome. Hope you guys enjoy. The game that I'm going to be covering today is a very fascinating one, and it's one I've recently reviewed on the site. It's a game called Zero Tolerance, and it's a first-person shooter exclusive to the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive if you're from Europe or Japan. Now, what's interesting about this title is, first of all, its exclusivity. Most first-person shooters that were on console, at the time at least, were essentially ports of Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, and some lackluster console-exclusive FPS games that were kind of crippled because of the lack of controls. The lack of button input, I guess, would be the proper way to phrase it. As opposed to that, Zero Tolerance kind of embraces the limitations of not just the system, but the Genesis controller, and basically crafts a control scheme and crafts a world for this game that, believe it or not, is a little bit better than most PC FPS games at that time, in that era. The game makes a lot of aesthetic improvements, such as animated backgrounds, animated texturing, dynamic lighting, and other small aesthetic improvements and features that were never seen on FPS games at the time. That kind of put it above those, but just because of the fact that it was an exclusive for the Genesis, led to it being shrouded in obscurity, and now people don't even know what Zero Tolerance is, which is a crime because this is actually a title that's worth playing. It hasn't aged well, but in my opinion, its entertainment value is still extremely high. So without further ado, let's just get through this. This is the password. You can continue from the last cleared room that you first appeared on. Players, you can actually play two-player on this game with the link cable that is a proprietary one provided by Accolade or Technopop, the company that developed the game. These cables are not in circulation anymore. Of course, you'd have to find a cable online. I paid a pretty penny for mine. I paid almost $30 for mine, but it was worth it. Cooperative Zero Tolerance or competitive Zero Tolerance is a lot of fun. Music, voice, sound. There's actually synthesized speech in this game, and it's not just aesthetic, it's actually very helpful at some points. So without further ado, let's get into it. The story is really nothing special, to be honest. Basically, aliens invade the satellite station that's orbiting Earth for the Planet Defense Corps, and then you have to clear that out. And then eventually you find out that was just a diversion for the planetary invasion, and the first target was the Planet Defense Corps headquarters, and you have to clear that out. And then there's also a merchant freighter you have to raid and rid of enemies. It's not really that special, but it is kind of a backdrop for the game, so I give it a pass. And plus, most games back then weren't really known for having story, especially first-person shooters. At least they tried in this case. So here we have a character select screen, and each of these characters has their advantages and disadvantages. As for Soba, she's a marksman. Hale right here, or aka Psycho, he's an explosives specialist. This guy, he's an expert with handguns. Ramos, he's a martial arts expert. And this guy right here, he's a surveillance system specialist. He also heals up a lot better than the other characters. So does J.J. Wolf. He definitely gets more health when he picks up a health pack, as opposed to other characters. It's a marginal increase for most characters, but for Wolf and Jorup, they collect a little bit more health. For J.J. Wolf, the most health. But I'm going with the Japanese-American woman, Satoi Ishii, aka Soba. Something that's interesting about this character cast is that it's a multi-ethnic cast, and it's not something you really find in first-person shooters, even back then. I mean, nowadays, yeah, sure, you get casts of people that are from, different descendants ethnically, but that was kind of unheard of way back during this time, circa 1994, early to mid-90s. Usually the main character of an FPS was a tall, muscular white guy who looked like either Dolph Lundgren or Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's kind of interesting that they went with this approach in this game. It's another way that this game kind of goes against the grain of conventional FPS style. So let's just get into this. I'm going to choose her because she's my favorite character because she's a marksman. Another thing about the characters in this game is that they also signify how many lives you have. You have as many lives as you have members of the Zero Tolerance team still remaining alive. Now, if you die as one of the members of the Zero Tolerance squad, you have to pick another one. And once you go through all of them and they've all passed on, your game is over. So, and if you really like a character, playing as a character, it's incentivized that you keep him or her alive because you don't want to be without the character, because once they're gone permanently. There's no bringing them back. So let's just get into this. As you can see, I'm cycling through my inventory, which is composed of 5 slots. Now, these 5 slots can be taken up by weapons, equipment, such as a bulletproof vest, and tools, such as flashlights, night vision goggles, etc. So there's a little bit of inventory management in this game. So here, let me just fire off the shotgun so you can hear how glorious it is. The sound effects in this game are incredible. So that's how the shotgun sounds. Handgun. You can see the ricochet off the wall right there. I just shot part of the wall right there. This game has partially destructible environments, which is a neat aesthetic feature you wouldn't find in games of 1994 and before. This is a brand new concept that was brought through in this game alone, and then was later improved on a little bit. It's a little more scripted in Duke Nukem 3D, but it is there. Now I have a bulletproof vest right here. Whenever you're equipped with an item that has no purpose or has an automatic purpose, you'll go fists in and you'll go into melee fighting. And pressing the fire button, you'll take a swing, and depending on how you orient the D-pad, you'll do different strikes. So you can do, left hook, right hook. You can also do a back kick, front kick, and if you string your moves together well, you can crouch and you can jump. And crouching is necessary for sneaking around and getting around undetected. Jumping around can be used to shoot enemies that are on the ceiling. But, you can actually perform, if you build up momentum with a run by holding down the D-pad and just letting it go, you can actually engage in a flying sidekick, which it requires a lot of hand-eye coordination, and it requires a lot of time to master that technique. But if you play as Ramos, the martial arts expert, he does insane amounts of damage with melee fighting. So, but without further ado, let's get into this. Get into some of the maneuvering here. I'm basically moving around by using the D-pad to steer my character left and right. That rotates the camera. Holding down the A button while pressing left and right will make the character strafe. A and down is crouch. A and up while crouching brings you back to a standing position, and up and A again when you're standing makes you jump. Oh, here we go. It started. See, I already got hit, but I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. I've got 10 hits until that vest dissipates and is useless. Alright, so those guys are down. Bam! Close up. Now, if you notice, you saw some blood pop out of the enemy. And if you look at these carcasses right here, you see that they're actively bleeding, so they're actively animating. And that's really not something that you saw in other first-person shooters at the time. Again, one of those little aesthetic touches that makes this game something unique. You can see right here, you can see the backgrounds right here. This background is static, not much going on right here, but you see the little boundary that separates the wall from outer space. I guess a shield of some sort, maybe like a force field, is animated, which is pretty cool. When you get into later stages in Zero Tolerance, you'll find that the backgrounds are more dynamic. They animate a lot more. You see a lot of Blade Runner-esque cityscapes in the background. Alright. So let's take these guys out. There we go. And you see all these enemies coming at you. It actually gets a little more intense as you progress through the game. And you can find yourself in situations where things have gone quite pear-shaped in an instant. It's not that uncommon for you to go into a situation, and if you don't play your cards right, you end up with, you know, going from 99 health to 20-something health in an instant. You have to be very, very cautious in this game. Not so cautious to where it's the point where you are playing a survival horror game, but I would say a couple steps away from that. You have to be very strategic with how you move about the environment. Oh, let's see if I can get... I'm going to show you something, a little aesthetic touch in the game. You see there's blood dripping down the walls. When blood flies out of an enemy and hits the wall or the ground, it'll drip until it dissipates into nothingness. And that's another feature that was only going to be seen 2 years later in Duke Nukem 3D. No other game had attempted blood decals before, but this game was so ambitious, and the guys at Technopop were so ambitious to try this that they made it work. So let me explain the rest of the HUD to you. Well, let me finish off this guy first, because this guy definitely wants a piece of me. Actually, this is a good way to describe the map. The little mini-map right here, you can see a glowing yellow dot. That's me. That's my character. And the dotted line indicates where he or she is facing. This is extremely useful, especially in these sort of stages right here where it's very low-lit conditions. It can be really difficult to see enemies coming from afar. Like for right now. See, I just took out an enemy right there just by looking at my mini-map. I'm gonna get hit. There we go. Glorious blood dripping on the wall. And you know, the texture quality is actually pretty good, you know, comparatively speaking. I mean, this is the best that you could expect from a game. And these guys really were very impressive in their programming prowess. To be able to make a game like this, I mean, it takes a certain level of ambition to think that you can make a first-person shooter for the Genesis and pull it off. I mean, it's something that it takes some stones to pull that off, and they did. It's very, I mean, even playing it right now, I know most people will say it hasn't aged well, and those are mostly people who can't really put their mindsets in the year of 1994, but it's still an impressive feat of programming. Especially the map. The map that's dynamically updating right now, not even that was in Doom. I mean, you could switch between a map or the game screen, but you couldn't have both at the same time. This game has both at the same time, and it actually does come in handy when you're playing certain sections of the game, especially the larger environments where it's low lit, enemies are coming in handfuls, and being able to see them from a distance before you see them on the view screen is actually really helpful. Speaking of the view screen, let me just take a small amount of time to explain. The right-hand corner, or the right-hand side, the 99 indicates my health. The number at the left-hand side indicates how many enemies are still alive and need to be dispatched in this level, in the current level that you're in. Also, the lower left-hand side of the screen indicates dynamic messages. If you pick up a med pack or an item or weapon of some sort, it'll show in the messages, just like the messages in Wolfenstein 3D and Doom. The lower right-hand side, you see your ID card, completely useless. I mean, unless you forgot which character you chose. I think that was just a placeholder, and that's really the only blemish in this game that kind of proves the fact that the game screen was truncated to facilitate a relatively smooth frame rate, or at least a relatively consistent one. But that's something you have to expect for a game that came out on standard hardware. This game does not use any graphics acceleration assistance. It doesn't use anything like a super effects chip or a 3D effects chip like the virtual racing game for the Sega Genesis, and that used some hardware assistance. So did hard driving for the Genesis, used a graphics accelerator chip. This game uses nothing. It's a standard 12 megabit or 12 mega powered Sega Genesis cartridge running on stock standard Genesis hardware. So the fact that this is running right now is in itself a feat. I mean, the sound is superb. The music might not be the most stellar soundtrack you've ever heard in your entire life, but I mean the visuals are very impressive for the time. And the game is very challenging. It's very rewarding when you actually dispatch a bunch of enemies and come out of a situation relatively unscathed. You feel like a badass, and that's the guns feel satisfying. Like, shooting things in this game is incredibly satisfying, and really, when it comes down to it, that is one of the biggest things you need to nail down on the floor for something that is supposed to be a first-person shooter, no matter what platform it comes out on. And this game definitely achieved that. I always feel a sense of satisfaction whenever I shoot down an enemy, you know, without losing any health, you know, especially when sometimes they sneak up behind you and you get the jump on them anyway. You know, it's a great sense of satisfaction. So here's another aspect right here is interesting. Well, before I show you that, let me show you this main map. Pressing pause will bring up a map, and it shows the bigger picture essentially. That's all it's used for, because you can't tell what direction you're facing. So that's just to see what rooms you haven't yet, you know, explored in the vicinity. Something that's interesting about this is that this 3D engine's actually it's actually got real height to it. So you can see, I'm going to turn around so that way you can see the transition. Now I'm going to back into the elevator. I mean, it's so impressive that this game has real height in it, and in a game that didn't really need it, but they put it in there anyway. So very impressive. And of course, elevator music. This is where being in low light conditions can be a little frustrating. You've got some ceiling lights right here to provide some minimal lighting. Okay, took these guys out. I mean, the environments are pretty well wrought for a Sega Genesis game. I mean, actually, this is something that you should expect from a PC game. But, you know, most other PC first-person shooters, aside from Doom, one thing they lacked was character. And I feel like this game has its own semblance of character. As where other PC-based first-person shooters, definitely other console-based first-person shooters, didn't really have any character whatsoever. I just got rocked. This is what I mean about situations going pear-shaped in an instant. Wow. So now I'm all of a sudden half health. I mean, this game can get pretty brutal on you. Come on. A handgun is not ideal unless you're Jorah, because it's got a very limited range. So most of the time you have to kind of get a beat on an enemy and be fixated on their position before you can actually pop off a shot, because if they come into visibility, chances are they're going to shoot you before you have a chance to shoot them with a pistol that has very limited range. And as you saw before, I traversed from one level to the next via elevator, and that actually is an important aspect, because let's say you're low on health, and there are no health packs on the current level that you're in, but you know for a fact on that first level you didn't really pick up any health packs, you kind of maintained. You can actually go up to the first level, provided that you haven't continued your game from a password, because continuing a game from a password kind of deletes all previously uncollected items. So if you're just going straight through a game, and you know that there's items and health packs that you've left on a previous floor, you can just go back and pick them up. You can backtrack and pick them up. And while that may seem tedious, it's actually really helpful. It kind of helps you stockpile on some stuff, especially like guns and ammunition. There's a lot of depth to this game that is, and it's something that I keep on covering more depth every time I play the game. The review, I did my best to do an in-depth teardown of how the game ticks and stuff, but there's still a lot of depth to be had from this game. Jeez. I think that's about gonna do it for me. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, man. Goodness gracious. I just got rocked. So on top of this space station, you do encounter the planetary surface. You do explore the Planet Defense Corps building, headquarters building, which has multiple floors, and it has its own different, bestiary of enemies to fight. And all the enemies are pretty varied. You fight all these bipedal characters. You also fight alien characters that are kind of like, they look like insectoid creatures that pretty much crawl on the ground, but also climb or crawl across walls and ceilings. It's actually pretty impressive to see this all in motion. And the weapons don't just stop at a shotgun and pistol. You can pick up long-range weapons, laser aim guns, rocket launchers, hand grenades, which actually have rudimentary physics attached to them. There's just so much stuff in this game, and it boggles my mind that nobody knows that this game exists, because it really is, and it's really an underrated gem of the Sega Genesis. And you know what? It's an incredible achievement for the Genesis too. Just the fact that this is running on stock hardware right now is unbelievable. It's insane. And this game, actually, unlike most other console-based FPS games, has a soul and has a character, and just does a lot of unique things that other games of the era just didn't. Maybe just because it was playing it safe or whatever, but Zero Tolerance takes a lot of bold steps into the future of what is now modern-day first-person shooter, gameplay and presentation. So anyway, I think that'll sum it up for this quick look at Zero Tolerance. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I've always enjoyed playing this game and just marveling at the accomplishment that is this game. And hope you guys got something out of it. As always, thanks for watching, and if you guys have any suggestions or just regular feedback, some chit-chat you want to drop on the website, be sure to drop us a line at solidstateromcast@gmail.com. Again, that email address is solidstateromcast@gmail.com. And drop us a line, tell us what you think about these videos, and definitely give us some suggestions. We always enjoy the criticism. And definitely check the review for this game proper on the website, Solid State Gamer, and the address is thesolidstategamer.wordpress.com. Again, that URL is thesolidstategamer.wordpress.com. And hope to see you there, and definitely check out our podcast, the Solid State Romcast, which I host, and Matt Off-White co-hosts, the writer of the Hardware Analysis series. And just give us some love. Check us out. See what you think, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. And if you guys have suggestions for what you would like us to cover, definitely let us know. We enjoy that. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.